Hello and welcome to the Art of Caro. First of all, before we start the actual video, I just want to say I am aware I have been gone for quite a bit, and I probably have said I want to post every other Sunday, and that has not happened. And as some of you may know if you've seen my previous videos, I struggle with exhaustion and anxiety and depression and my autism and my ADD and some borderline asthma and a whole bunch of stuff, and sometimes it just is a lot and I need a break from everything and just need to focus on basic survival stuff. So that happened for a bit, and now I'm starting to get a bit more energy. The period when I couldn't do a lot of stuff that I wanted to, and I am kind of disappointed that it's happened during spring, where I'm usually at my most energetic, and that it didn't happen this year, so that's sad, but I'm hopefully going in the right direction, and hopefully I will have a lot of videos coming out soon. I have a bunch of projects that I've been working on while I'm recovering. I just haven't had the energy to edit and to be on camera like this and actually talk about what I'm doing more than just step by step. So yeah, so to get on with this video, this is a wearable mock-up I'm doing. Actually, I'm doing two wearable mock-ups. This is one of them, and that's the one you won't see the whole making of. I am focusing on getting a really good waistcoat pattern that I want to do a bigger project with, where I'm doing some smocking and stuff that is a lot more complicated and time consuming, and with fabric I spent more money on. So this is me testing out techniques and testing out the pattern. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Please keep on watching. Okay, so I'm not sure if this is going to work out, but I have this purple pillow cover that I got on in the secondhand store, and it's really big, and I'm going to try to dismantle it and save as much as possible and get at least the front and the lapels made out of this fabric, and then something else for the back, I think, like the lining or something. But this is a wearable mock-up, so we'll see how it works out, and yeah, I'll check in with you guys later. Please excuse that everything is so messy right now. I've not been feeling well for a while now. Anyway, this is how it ended up after I dismantled the pillow cover. I have these edging stuff and two bigger purple pieces, and then I decided that I would use this pillow cover with the skulls and bones sort of pirate print for the back instead of a lining fabric, because all that I have is so flimsy, and I kind of wanted to continue the trend of just using thrifted pillowcases. So this was thrifted from another place, and I'm going to line it with I think, depending how it looks through this fabric, I'm probably going to line it with a discounted sheet that I bought at IKEA, just cotton sheet. So I'm going to start cutting out pieces now, because yeah, so too bad that I couldn't get it. I mean, I could if I pieced, I could get all of it out of this purple fabric, but I kinda don't want to do piecing for this, so I'm going to do the collar and lapel thing and the fronts in this fabric, as well as I need to do some facing for the front here. That's going to come out of this. I toyed around with the idea of cutting this out of this edging thing with the embroidery, but it has a very visible fading, very visible line from where it's gotten sun bleached or something like that on the fold, so I don't want to do this, but I'm going to save this for another project. So yeah, I'm going to cut out the pieces now. So after I cut out my pieces, I just use a long running stitch with a yellow thread to mark out the center front on my front pieces, and then I baste my darts using a ladder stitch so I can pull them together and make them easier to sew in the machine later on. And this I've done several times in other videos. Then I stitch that on the machine, and instead of backstitching at the end, I just stitch straight over the edge, and then by hand do a knot and hide the ends of the thread. And then I realized that I was going to bag line this, and realized I don't have to hide all the threads ends in the darts, so I stopped doing that. Then I just trimmed the darts because it was so much extra fabric, and that made it hard to press it, so I just trimmed them and cut some notches at the waistline because the curve there was so sharp. Then I basted some old sheet as an interlining for my facing, and stitched that together with basting stitches on outside the seam allowance, and then I'm trimming the excess fabric to make my seam allowances less thick. And then I ironed down a 1 centimeter seam allowance on the inside of the facing, the parts that's going to be stitched to the lining. And then I stitched the facing to the lining. As you can see, I'm stitching down that folded end there. And then I baste the darts in the back. And the shoulder darts in the back. Just hand basting them down. And then I sew them on the machine and do the same thing with the ends there. And then I do the lining darts as well. There's a lot of darts in this pattern. I made this pattern myself. I'm quite proud of it actually, even though it's not perfect yet, but I learned how to do a basic block pattern from a book, and I'm kind of impressed by myself. After I pressed all the darts, I attached the front pieces to the back pieces at the shoulders and sew them down. And then I do the same for the lining. Then I press open the seam allowances at the shoulders and baste the some interlining to the outside pieces of the collar. And it's the same deal there. I just machine baste them on, and then I pin together the lining piece, outside pieces of the collar, and stitch them together at the back. And trim the seam allowances and press those open. And then I repeat that with lining. Just pin the center back of the collar, stitch it, trim the seam allowance and press it open. And then I pin together the outer and lining pieces of the collar. and then I stitch those together. And then I trim the seam allowances and make some notches where necessary. And then I turn the collar the right side out. The points there is a bit difficult, and I had to fiddle around with them a bit. And then I press the collar together. Making sure to make those pointy bits as nice as possible. Then I pin the collar to the outer pieces of the waistcoat around the neckline, and baste them to the outside of the waistcoat with the machine. And then I'm pinning the lining to the garment, and I'm pinning it at the neckline, at the fronts, at the front like hems and the back hem, but I'm leaving the side seams open. And then I'm trimming the seam allowances and making notches where needed. I'm sorry if this video is going a bit fast. I promise when I'm doing then I'm turning the garment the right sides out. I promise when I'm doing the the waistcoat this is meant for, I'm going to make a more detailed video. This is just wearable mockups that I'm doing to make a more detailed project later on. And then I'm pressing the fabric together where I sewed it to make my edges nice and crisp. I think this turned out to be a really fun waistcoat with the skulls and bones and the purple fabric. As you can see, the side seams are open, and that's so you can turn it the right side out and then stitch it together nicely. And it works really well. And here I'm pressing the collar to make it lie the way I want it to, and I'm really happy with how the collar on this turned out. It could be a bit better, but I think it ended up pretty close to what I wanted. And then I'm pinning the side seam, and when I'm doing that, I'm pinning the outer part of the garment at the side seam, and then I'm pinning a bit to the lining fabric on each side, and I'm leaving a gap open in the lining to get access to where I'm sewing. It's a bit fiddly, but the result is so awesome. And then I'm stitching the side seam together, and it's a bit difficult to show you what I'm doing because the garment is in the way. And then I ironed that seam, and I also have to do a quick cut into the seam allowance at the waist since it's a sharp curve. But after I did that, making the seam allowance lay correctly was a lot easier. So here I'm lining up the edges of the gap I left, and yeah, that's me cutting the seam allowance, and it looked so much better after I did that. And then I'm pinning together the edges of the opening, and basting them down to keep them in place while I'm hand sewing it together. And then I'm hand sewing it. using whip stitches. Or like reversed whip stitches maybe. Yeah, I did one technique on one side and another on the other side. It's on the inside, it's not visible, so as long as it holds, that's all that matters. And then I removed the basting. Then I picked out these fun square buttons in gold that I found at a secondhand shop. And I'm marking out where they are supposed to go on the waistcoat. Then I hand stitch my buttonholes. And then buttonhole stitches, and then I attach the buttons. And for this waistcoat, I just made one row of buttons, actual buttonholes, and then stitched on the buttons on the other side. I might have to put some snaps on the inside just to keep everything in place later on, but it's worked so far. It just sometimes slips down and gets uneven at the hem. But maybe a snap button just at the bottom to keep everything where I want it to be. And then I'm just sewing down my collar just to keep it where I want it to be. And this is the finished waistcoat. And I think it's really fun. It's not perfect by any means, but it was a great first attempt on a wearable mock-up. So yeah, and I can wear it. As you can see, it dips up down weirdly at the hip. And it also is curved in weirdly at the shoulder, and the neckline is low, but that is what I'm going to fix on the next waistcoat. Okay, so I made some alterations to my pattern, and I also made a different kind of collar just because I wanted to make something different for this mock-up. And again, this second wearable mock-up, and I think I'm going to try to make some pockets for this. So since I already filmed how I put it together, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to film this again. I'm going to show you just I've made the neck opening smaller, and I altered the armholes, and I fixed the side hip weirdness. I hope that's what we're testing now. And I also had to alter the collar. I also have a basic collar pattern, collar lapel pattern that's going to work with this. But I wanted to make something that looks, oh, cats again, look sort of like a dragon or like a lizard or something with this. So we see how that works out. This project is to test things out, so I'm going to have fun with it. And this is the facing. I had to alter that as well. And I'm going to use this black fabric that I made my black pants out of, that I showed in my what do I call that video? Cozy slacks video, the ones I made before I made those. And I'm going to line them, line it in the same black sheets that I used to line the other waistcoat, and I'm going to use that for the collar as well, because it's a slightly different shade of black and also a slightly different I don't know, thread count, weave thing, So I hopefully that will add a bit of extra interest to the waistcoat. And then I'm going to keep thinking if I want to put in pockets. But I'm going to show you just how I made the different color. And if I put in pockets, I'm going to show that as well. Otherwise, you are just going to get some short clips before the reveal. This is just to show how I made changes to my mockups until I get to the big project I want to do. Normally I don't make wearable mockups that much, but I really like waistcoats, so I figured I could just work with it. So I'm going to get started with this now.
My pocket flap is just this one piece that's I cut down the fold so it's identical on both sides, and then I stitch it together, and that fold is like the upper edge, and that makes that really flat and nice. And then I cut off the excess seam allowance and make some notches to make it easier to turn it right sides out. I left some space for turning it over, and when I'm top stitching later on, that is going to be stitched down, so it won't fray or anything. So this is me top stitching it. I'm not going to show the entire waistcoat because you already seen how I made that one, and again this is just me testing stuff out. So this is me testing out how to make a pocket in a waistcoat, and I'm not sure what this method is called, but I just stitched around the spot where I marked the opening, just leaving a slight gap between my seam lines. Just cut that open, turn the pocket piece to the right, to the inside of the waistcoat, and pressed out the seam allowance. Just pinned it down, and then I moved the pins to the outside, and then I top stitched around the opening. Between these stuff I pressed it, but I didn't want to put up the camera there, so just imagine me pressing stuff all the time. And then I turn up the pocket and I pin it, and I stitch around the pocket on the inside, making sure to not catch the waistcoat. And then it was fraying, so I just zigzag stitch around it as well. And then I put the pocket flap over the pocket opening and stitch down the top of it. And this is the final result. I like this one even better than the purple one. It's really fun. It reminds me of a bat or a lizard or something like that, and I can put something small in the pockets. They turned out to be really, really small and placed a bit further out toward the side seam than I wanted to, but this is a project to learn from. So yeah, you can see some weird wrinkling in the back. That is because it's too tight around the hips, because this fabric wasn't quite as stretchy as the purple one was, and I didn't realize that, so I'm going to change that on my pattern to give me a bit more ease. Yeah, and that's the project. As you can see, the changes I made between the first waistcoat and the second waistcoat was the change in the hips, and I also raised the neckline, and I added pockets. That was a test. I didn't know how that was going to turn out, but I'm actually really happy with how they turned out. I just wished I placed them a little bit more towards the center of the waistcoat, but that's something I can learn in the future. My mother thinks I should try doing some slightly bigger pockets and placing them a bit better so I can fit my bank card or my ID in it, and I like that idea, so I'm probably going to try that in the future. But yeah, I'm very happy with these waistcoats. I've worn them out and about now, and I am so happy with how they turned out, and that I used
material I already had. Everything is things from my stash, and most of it is either leftovers from other projects or from the secondhand store. So very cheap and fun projects to make. So yeah, hopefully I will have a new video up soon. Sorry, my cat is chatty right now. Hopefully I will have a new video up soon, but if I don't, you know that I haven't been feeling well, so it is probably because of that. But I really enjoy doing this, so hopefully that will come up soon. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more of my videos in the future, you may want to subscribe and hit the notification bell. May the stars shine upon your faces and have a glorious day. Thank you and goodbye for now.